DSLR or mirrorless? Which one is better? Why would you use it? I'll tell you after the intro.
Ask David Bergman.
Hey, welcome back. Of course, you know who I am. David Bergman here answering your photography questions. Today I've got one from Bernie L. and he asks, what are the pros and cons between mirrorless systems versus DSLRs? Oh boy, this is a good debate, right? So in the world we live in right now, in late 2019, mirrorless is the newest, latest, and greatest thing, right? So it must be better, right? Well, let's go through some of the pros and cons of each. First of all, what are we talking about when we talk about a mirrorless camera? Well, this is a DSLR. This is the Canon 1DX Mark II, and it's a single lens reflex camera with a digital sensor, so DSLR. And what that means is there's a mirror inside of this, and when you're looking through the viewfinder in the back, see, it's not lined up with where the lens goes. So what happens is that mirror, there's a mirror in there at a 45-degree angle, and you're actually seeing through the lens because the light bounces up in the mirror and then bounces around and into your eye. So you're actually looking through the lens directly, even though it's not lined up. Now that means that when the picture is being taken, the sensor is actually lined up with the lens. So that mirror has to flip out of the way, the shutter opens and exposes that sensor. So that's kind of a big system that's in these DSLRs. This system's been around a long time. SLRs have been around since, I don't know, the 60s or something. Don't correct me on that. So they've been around a long time. But because of that, it's a very mature system and it works really, really well. Now, the newest thing are mirrorless cameras. This is the Eos R. I've got the grip on here, so that's why it looks a little bigger than maybe you'd expect. But with new technologies in screens, in video screens now, we've eliminated that mirror system, that mirror box. It's gone from this camera. And basically the light comes in through the lens, hits the sensor directly that's in the back behind the shutter, and then projects a video image onto the back of the camera and also inside the viewfinder. So when you're looking in the viewfinder, you're not actually looking at the scene with your naked eye, you're looking at a video monitor that's right there. So because that technology has gotten so much better in the last number of years, the screens are high enough quality, high enough resolution, and high enough quality that it's good enough now to be able to use as a daily camera. So why would you use one or the other? I'm going to go through some of the advantages or disadvantages of each. Let's start with mirrorless. First of all, mirrorless cameras in general potentially can be smaller and lighter. Many of them are. Again, this one I have the grip on it, so it's almost the size of a DSLR. But the camera by itself is much smaller, and there are mirrorless cameras that are very, very small. Because you've eliminated that whole mechanism in there, they can make them a lot smaller and lighter. So that certainly can be an advantage. When you are looking, since you're looking at a video screen, you're basically looking at the picture before you shoot it. So all of the things like exposure and your depth of field and the color and all those things, you're actually seeing what you see is what you get. You're seeing the image in your viewfinder before you take the picture. So if you're a beginning photographer, if you're just learning photography, or even a more advanced photographer, and you just don't want to have to worry about your exposure or anything like that, you know you'll see immediately if your picture's underexposed, you'll see it before you take the picture. So that's really, really nice to be able to see that in the viewfinder. Also, with the new system comes new lenses. The newest lenses, the RF lenses for this Eos R, are insanely good, right? There's new technology in the lenses and in the body that really gives the engineers amazing abilities to do things they couldn't do before. There's a new lens for this system called it's the 2870 f2, which you've probably seen me use in other videos. I love that lens. Nothing like that exists for a DSLR. They do not make a 2870 zoom in that range that's f2 that has an f2 aperture. So it has to do with because the back of the lens is closer to the sensor, the flange distance is shorter. The engineers can do all kinds of amazing things. I can't pretend to understand all of it, but I know that those lenses are incredibly sharp, edge to edge, sharper than I've ever really seen before as a general rule. Also, mirrorless cameras, because they have an electronic shutter, you can shoot completely silently. Some DSLRs will allow you to do it. Some DSLRs have a quiet mode and a few have a silent mode, but for the most part, all mirrorless cameras will allow you to shoot silent. That could be an advantage. I was doing a photo shoot with Sarah McLachlan, and I was on stage with her in a small theater, and it was a big theater, but I was near her on stage, and it would have been really disruptive if I had if it made the sound every time I took a picture, especially if I shoot a burst, bop, 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 bop. That would be really obnoxious. She was alone on the stage playing piano. The entire crowd would have heard me. She would have heard me. So I was able to shoot silently all night long without anybody hearing it. If you're a documentary photographer, like if you're on a film set or you're photographing a courtroom or something like that where you really need complete silence, this is a huge advantage of being able to shoot mirrorless silently. Also a little thing, but a lot of them, most of them, because it's a viewfinder-based system, they all have flip screens for the most part. Many of them have flip screens. So you can flip the screen out, you can shoot up high, you can shoot down low. It's a little bit easier. Some DSLRs have it, but you're not using the optical sensor where you're really looking through the lens optically at that point. So those are some of the big advantages with mirrorless cameras. DSLRs. Look, I talked about size. Some people actually prefer bigger bodies, right? So these things are, the high-end ones are very big. This camera, this Canon 1DX Mark II, is built like a tank. You can, shoot all day with this thing. The shutter is going to last a really, really long time. So some people actually prefer the ergonomics of this, of how it feels in your hand. Also, if you're shooting with a long lens and you put a long lens on a tiny little mirrorless body, the weight could be weird. And so having a big honking camera sometimes is better for stability. It's a little easier to hold still. There are some advantages to having a bigger camera if that's the way you want to go. Battery life. These big cameras have big batteries. Some of them have smaller batteries, of course, depending on the camera model. But for the most part, because mirrorless cameras they want to make them smaller and lighter, they have to use smaller and lighter batteries, and that's going to give you fewer time to shoot. You're going to get fewer shots per battery. So of course you can carry extra batteries, but as far as single battery, DSLRs as a general rule are going to give you more time. The optical viewfinder, looking through the actual lens instead of looking at a video screen, some people prefer that. They'd rather actually look at something with their naked eye instead of looking through a screen. There could be issues where if you're shooting in an extremely backlit situation and with a flash, for example, it might be actually hard to see your subject on a screen if you can't adjust that. Whereas if you're looking through with the naked eye, you have really a much better dynamic range with your eye than you do with a video screen. So some people actually prefer seeing through the lens instead of looking at a screen. A couple more things. There are right now way more lenses for a DSLR system because it's a mature system. It's been around many, many years. There are hundreds of lens options that are just not available yet for the mirrorless cameras. Now, the new mirrorless, this Canon, for example, they do make an adapter, so you can use the old EF lenses on this Eos R body without any loss in quality or speed. So that's not so much an issue per se, but native lenses, there are certainly more at this point for DSLRs. Mirrorless cameras have a bit of a rolling shutter, which means because the way the light comes off the sensor, it's collected off the sensor. In fast-moving situations, you might have an issue with some warping going on that you're not going to have with a DSLR, so that's an advantage for the DSLR. The autofocus system, I used to say it was much better on a DSLR. The mirrorless has kind of caught up now, so with the high-end bodies, I think the autofocus system is pretty much on par now. These high-end DSLRs are still pretty awesome with autofocus. And lastly, with DSLRs, because there's so many more bodies to choose from, you can probably get lesser expensive ones as a general rule. If you go full-frame mirrorless compared to full-frame DSLR, you can probably get cheaper ones, less expensive ones. There's just more options to choose from. There are a lot more bodies in the DSLR system. So those are just some of the pros and cons. Now, what do I like? Why would you choose one or the other? Well, you could really go either way. They're both really, really good. You can't really go wrong with whatever you choose. There might be one or two functions that tip the scales for you. For example, if you need silent shooting, mirrorless is absolutely the way to go. If you want a really small body, Chase Jarvis used to say, the best camera is the one you have with you. If you're going on vacation, you don't want to carry a giant body like this because you're never going to actually bring it outside. Maybe you're going to get a small mirrorless camera that you can carry in your pocket or your purse or something like that. That might be an advantage for the mirrorless. If you just prefer optical shooting, you like seeing with your naked eye instead of looking at a viewfinder, you're going to want to go DSLR. If you need bigger batteries, if you want the speed, the frames per second or the autofocus system of a DSLR, you're going to go that way. So it really depends on which one of those one or two functions works to your advantage. So that's really the pros and cons. That's what mirrorless are. You know, this technology is changing constantly, and it's the end of 2019 right now. Probably in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it's going to be a completely different conversation as the technology changes in both DSLRs and mirrorless. But I don't think DSLR is dead. I think they're still going to be around. Canon has already announced the development of the 1DX Mark III, so they're still committed to it, and I'm sure there will be new mirrorless Eos R type bodies in the future as well. So it's kind of nice to see the camera companies developing in both systems and giving us, the consumers, plenty of choices. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks so much for joining me here. Listen, again, don't forget Adorama TV. That's where you're watching this. I hope you're a subscriber. If not, go ahead and click it down below. Turn on the little bell so you get notifications. There's all kinds of great photo shows here from lots of other hosts. Also, Ask David Bergman. Go to AskDavidBergman.com. There's a form on there. You can ask your own photo question. I will pick the best ones and answer them right here on a future show. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you back here next week.